Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's October 20th. These are your headlines. It has been a stormy, blustery, windy, rainy, crappy week, and that has definitely affected the fishing. But we're hearing about some good tog fishing from up inside Narragansett Bay. Hearing about good surf fishing for stripers in Connecticut. We get the results of the Vineyard Derby. And we have a video showing a hand-caught, that means from shore, bluefin tuna in Rhode Island. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
So before we begin, just got to tell you guys I got to keep the video short again this week. Tim, our video guy, is still down in Florida dealing with the after effects of Ian, and seems like the damage is pretty extensive, so going to keep it short this week. We'll start things off with the giveaway, and I did decide what I'm going to give away, and it's going to be this Goo Goo Man bunker colored pikey. Glenn from Goo Goo is one of my favorite plug builders, and you know, you guys should be pretty psyched to win that. We're also going to do a second plug this time around. This is a hydro twitch bait from Yozuri in the mackerel color. This is a plug that they're very excited about. It's something new to them and something I'm pretty psyched to put some good time in with as well. You guys know the drill with the giveaway. We're just going to just email your photos to me at danderson@thefisherman.com or text them to the number on the screen. And we're going to run this one a little longer because I've kind of gotten behind on the giveaway stuff with all the stuff after losing my dad, and so I hope you guys can forgive me on that. But I need to catch up on that, so we're going to run this one all the way till right before Christmas. We're going to end this one on December 22nd. Lots of time to get some great photos of some great fish. So send them in and we'll see who wins. The other little news item I have for you guys is the Vineyard Derby wrapped up this week, and Elizabeth O'Brien was the big winner. Here's a video of the moment she won.
For a brand new Eastern boat.
Looks like a great time out there, and hopefully one of these years I'm going to get out there and do the Vineyard Derby myself. Now let's head up to the North Shore where the striper fishing is starting to wind down a little bit. Also got some news about a flea market, fishing flea market going on up there. Let's toss it over now to James Jukes.
We did have a phenomenal weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a couple of small guys on Sunday. But the weather we had on Thursday and Friday night was just fantastic. That stinging rain right in your face, blowing 20, 30 miles an hour. Only me and one other guy out there. And we had fish to 30 pounds. After I ran out of my half dozen eels, I proceeded to catch fish on plugs. Every plug in my bag caught fish. They weren't up to 30 pounds like we did on the eels, but they were worked up. Friday night also, a buddy I know, he had one fish that was 45 pounds. Big seas, wicked sweep coming through. Just all kinds of feeding going on. Tons and tons of silver sides everywhere, even in those rough waters. But the last few days, it has tapered off. We are right into a very small tide up on Plum Island. We're looking at 5.5 feet, and our normal is 10. So with those tides that are small like that, we generally don't get as much sweep. Therefore, the fish stay out, and they have. I suspect this coming new moon, things will pick up. I do not think we will see the size fish that we have been getting, but there still will be a lot of action. You got to get out there and do it now. As far as some of the freshwater fishing up here as well, I'd like to do a little trout fishing before work and stuff, and that's been well. Been very good. But those are all stockies, and they're wicked fun. Pass the time. The guys are still catching tons of carp in the Merrimack, largemouth, pike, smallies, you name it. These guys are kicking some butt up here. So, with that said, I know guys north of us, guys south of us, they're still hitting fish as well. So, everybody, don't give up. One last thing before I sign off is the Plum Island Surfcasters are having their first annual flea market at the Elks Club in Newburyport. It's on Low Street in Newburyport, and we will be there between 9 a.m. and noon. If anybody's interested, there is a table or two left. Just get in touch with me. I'm sure most of you know who I am. Should be a good time. Lots of used stuff, some new stuff. Maybe some stuff that you could use the tail end of this fall run. But Saturday, 9 to noon, at the Elks Club in Newburyport. All right, Dave, that's all I got.
And that striper migration is definitely cooling off, you know, from southern Maine all the way down through Boston. As we get into the Scituate area where, you know, the other kind of big flare-up of bass has been happening over these last few weeks, definitely slowing down. Not as many big fish, and most of the bigger ones are being taken at night on eels. But still good numbers of fish in the area, and even a few nice fish being taken in the estuaries on plugs. Another thing I have been hearing about, although not so much this week with all the wind, is the ground fishing is picking up in the Boston area now. In haddock in particular seems to be biting well. So that's something you can look at if we ever get rid of this wind. Heading out onto the Cape, it's been mostly surf guys that are reporting anything. It's been mostly on the bay side, and it's been mostly smaller fish. Schoolies and low slot size fish being taken at night on SP minnows and sluggos and little slender baits of that type. Going around the outside of the Cape, I really didn't hear anything from guys fishing boat or surf striper wise. The only news that I saw was a giant bluefin taken by one guy that runs out of Chatham. Must have picked the right day and just went out there and got himself a big old, real big giant. Got the shot on the screen here for you. Coming down into Vineyard Sound, albie fishing still holding on. The fish are a lot smaller, 7 pounds and under, but they are still there. Still some bonito. The further out you go, the better shot you got. So south side of Nantucket, south side of the Vineyard seem to be holding the most promise there. Still some big blues on the Vineyard as well. For a final rundown on what the Derby taught us this year, we're going to throw it over now to John Custer from Derby headquarters.
The Derby wrapped up this past weekend. On Sunday, the 16th, we had our awards ceremony, celebrated the end of the 35-day-long event. Dale Nicholson from the Fisherman magazine was there to take in all the festivities, and it really was a wonderful day to celebrate. Over 3,100 anglers participated in the Derby this year. 1,960 fish were weighed in. It was great blue fishing, huge bluefish. A lot of 15, 16, 17, 18 pounders, and a 19-pounder won it. And the lucky winner of the grand prize Eastern Boat was the angler who caught that 19-pound bluefish, Elizabeth O'Brien from Oak Bluffs on Martha's Vineyard. We're really grateful to all the sponsors for supporting the Derby, the 3,100 anglers who support our mission, and the nonprofit Derby Corporation. We gave out $80,000 in college scholarships this year, and we're really proud of the event. Grateful to the support. It's a beloved event on the island. Dale, you got to see that, and it was just a wonderful wrap-up. The fishing was great, and the fish are still here. Personally, I'm excited to start to tog fishing, but the albacore, the bluefish, and the bonita are still here. The water's still warm, and as long as the weather's good, we're going to still get at it. But it was a great Derby. We're tired, but it's a labor of love and a fun event for the committee and everyone involved with the volunteers. So thanks again to the fishermen and everyone, and we look forward to doing it again next fall. So thank you all. Back to you, Dave.
Shooting through into Buzzards Bay. We didn't get a lot of reports from the bay this week, probably again because of this weather. The only thing that I've been hearing is just decent striper fishing in the estuaries kind of leaving the canal. So from Wareham all the way out to Dartmouth. decent bass fishing in that area. Also, togging in between the, in between this windstorms here has been good in the Westport area. Jason Colby's been hot on that, and you can give him a call if you want to get in on it. Inside the canal, still going strong, still decent fishing happening in there. And for a little bit more of a rundown on that, let's toss it over now to East End Eddie.
Thanks, Dave. It's great here in the canal. I just caught this 30-inch slot, and I'm going to go put it back in the water, and I'll be right with you. So I'm back, Dave. So there's still plenty of bait in the canal. Things have been great here. Actually, I caught another bunker on my retrieve. I've done that a few times this year, by accident, of course, and they're so plentiful. You just reel through the middle of them and you catch one by accident. But so things have been good. Guys are catching fish on Bell Road with swimmers. One guy with a magic swimmer caught some slots the other day, and across the way at the combat zone, guys are still pulling nice fish out of that honey hole underneath the railroad bridge. And towards the Bourne Bridge, 4 guys got into a topwater bite the other day. It lasted 2 hours. Paul the Painter Gravina, Tim Hollywood Petrarca, Bill on the Grill Prudo, and Mashpee Mike Lorea all caught at least 10 fish on a topwater bite. The predominant color was white, no surprise there. And the Guppy Jobo Jr. was working magic on the surface. And top honors went to Mashpee Mike with a 40-inch striper. So congratulations to those guys. I was across the way on the other side of the Bourne Bridge, on the mainland side, with about 15 of us, with a lot of breaking fish, and they were this is the next day actually, and they wouldn't take anything. I finally caught a 12-pound bluefish on a Guppy Jobo, a white one, but even that, he hit it 3 times before he finally took the hooks. And so the fish were fussy. At first I thought they were albies, but I did catch that bluefish. And so one of the hottest places has been Pips Rip. Pips Rip has been great. Josh Douglas caught a half a dozen slots with a white fish lab, and Kenny Nevins, over a period of 2 days, caught 26 fish between Pips Rip and Pole 80. I'm not sure what Kenny was using. He uses a fish lab quite a bit. And I happened to bump into legendary surfcaster Charlie Murphy of Mass Bass fame in the parking lot. And he was telling me a few days before at Pips Rip, he saw a guy reeling in a tough fish, having a fight with a big fish, and the fish was so strong it was actually pulling the guy out into the canal. So Charlie's first thought was loosen your drag, but anyway, the guy fought the fish in, and it turned out it was foul hooked. But even if it hadn't been foul hooked, it would have still been a terrific fight, because Charlie saw the guy holding the fish up on a boga, and a guy yelled 43. So it was a 43-pounder at Pips Rip. And the best story from Pips Rip, though, is experienced canal rat Jack Barton, who was a great guy and a terrific carpenter. Jack took his grandson James Astle fishing at Pips Rip, and James had a white bucktail on with a red trailer, a fat cow jig strip, and James had never caught a striper, and he's bouncing that off the bottom, and he reeled in a 30-inch slot, and he had never caught a bluefish, and he actually caught a fat blue that day. So congratulations to James. Jack, you should start saving now, because he'll probably be asking for a lamb glass for Christmas. So that's great. I'm happy for that young man, and it was a big crowd watching him. A lot of canal regulars and tourists and people that stay at the campgrounds there, and everybody's applauding for young James. So that's terrific. So my tip of the week is that, I see guys once in a while using sand spikes on the canal to put their rod in. I don't think you need a sand spike on the canal. There's millions of crevices and all these rocks. You can just take the butt end of your rod and stand it up in the crevice, and your butt end of your rod might get scratched a little, but it's a tool, and the scratching isn't going to affect its performance. That's what I've done. That's what I've always done, and to each his own. But I think you ought to leave your sand spikes in the truck until you get to the beach. So until next time, be safe and catch a big one.
And you guys that do a lot of freshwater fishing this time of year, I've been doing a little bit myself. Trout stocking is heavily underway, and let's get a little deeper rundown on that now from Roy Leva.
It's been all about trout still, and I'm actually doing one of my favorite things to do here in autumn, and that's fish these tiny little brooks. I mean, I'm just wearing a pair of muck boots and walking and fishing these holes along this tiny little stream. It's no less than 2 to 3 feet wide, and I'm catching some of the most beautiful native brookie that you'll ever see. These guys are cute. I'm gonna get them back in the water real quick. But other than that, that is it, man. It's been a ton of trout. State is still stocking, a lot of holdovers, and then there's, you know, native fish like these beautiful native brook trout. All right, buddy. Catch you guys next week.
As we cross over into Rhode Island, the wind has played a big part in kind of slowing the togging down. We only had one really good day for togging, and I believe that was Sunday. Guys got out and did a little bit better. But most of the action that we've been hearing about over the last, in between, all around that Sunday, one day of calmness, has been up inside the bay. Guys are fishing, in the lee of the land, or going up into some of the passages and getting some fish. The East Passage is a really good spot to check out. There's a few wrecks on the bottom there. There's a lot of ledges, a lot of structure, and a lot of varied depths in there. So good chance you're going to find some tog if you go in there. As long as you don't have a straight south or a straight north wind, you can usually duck out of it and find some fish. On the striper front, hasn't been the greatest week. Definitely slower this week than it was last week. And that goes for boat and surf. Just didn't hear about as many big fish. Breachways seemed to slow down a little bit. And the surf guys were reporting smaller fish overall. Didn't hear much from Block Island either. Probably the same reason, just hard to head out there in this wind. But for a little deeper dive on what's been going on from Point Judith out to Block and beyond, let's toss it over now to John Lee from JL Charters.
Hey Dave, John Lee, JL Charters. This week we've been doing some sea bass trips south of the island and some local blackfish trips. Fishing's been good. There's been a lot of wind, so you just got to deal with the weather this time of the year. Anyway, that's all I've got. Take care. Thank you.
There are still some albies around as well, mostly central, from like the Harbor of Refuge and then heading west from there. Hasn't been big numbers or big fish, but they are still around, and it remains to be seen whether they'll kind of regroup and give us one more shot at them after all this wind kind of calms down. We're hoping for that to happen soon. One last really cool thing that did happen, I believe, was on Sunday, and that was a couple guys walking on the beach near Watch Hill in Rhode Island, and they saw something wild out in the surf. They saw what appeared to be a bluefin tuna. They went in after it and were actually able to capture it with their hands. You'll see here, it's a decent sized fish, probably I guess maybe a 50-pound class bluefin. So check this out.
Hold him up! Hold him up! Hold him up! What? Oh my God! Dude, that's so badass! Let's go! Let him go! Let him go! Let him go!
Big thanks to the guys from Watch Hill Outfitters for sending that over to us. Very cool video. Never seen anything quite like that, and not too many guys can say they caught a bluefin tuna with their hands. So that's pretty cool, and that's what I got for you guys in Rhode Island this week. Heading over into Connecticut, a lot of surf fishing been going on in the eastern half of the Sound, and guys have been doing really well. They've got a big slug of 15 to 25 pound stripers in that area, and that's basically happening from the Thames all the way out to the Connecticut River. They seem to be inside a little bit. They're not all, running right on the front. A lot of them are up inside, and they're following peanut bunker. And if you can find some of these peanut bunkers, some of these big schools of peanuts they got, you got a really good shot of finding a big glut of bass. And if you find the adult bunker, which have been a little harder to find, but they are around, you've got a good shot of finding those fish 25, 35, and maybe even bigger. So great fishing's been mostly at night. And even the fly guys have been getting in on it. Rowan Lytle's been getting some really nice fish on the fly this week. If you follow him on Instagram, you'll know what I'm talking about. In the Connecticut River area, the boat guys have been ducking out of the wind by going up into the river and finding some nice bass on soft plastics, docks, and other topwater plugs. For a deeper dive on that, let's toss it over now to Captain Mike Roy from Real Cash Charters.
Hey, what's up, guys? We are in the third week of October now, and that means the fall run is happening. There are fish on all the beaches, the reefs, the estuaries and rivers. Chances are you're going to find some kind of life. The striped bass are definitely feeding. They're chasing the peanut bunker and adult bunker around. Within the past week, I've seen some schools of gator bluefish, 13, 14-pound stuffed, fat, angry bluefish, hitting topwater really well. So this is definitely the time to be out looking for those fish. Albies, some reports here and there, consistently inconsistent is what I would say for them, but they are around. And then the black fishing, really popular, maybe too popular this time of year, but hearing better reports, shallow water, I believe as the temps start to cool off, probably towards the end of the month, beginning of November, that bite should even pick up. There are still a lot of black sea bass around and porgies around as well.
Heading west from the Connecticut River, we're going to drop in on the guys from Black Hall Outfitters now and get a report from them.
Out on the dock today, figured I'd get a look at some of this pretty spectacular fall weather we have now that most of those storm fronts have moved through. We've got a really nice fall run happening out there. There's a lot of bait going on. We just finished up our Togtober tournament, 10.94 pound tog, went to the winner. There are plenty of big fish to be caught out there. Right now, early in the tog season, there are a lot of smaller fish, a lot of bait stealing fish. You've got some cunner in there, a bunch of porgy, a bunch of small sea bass, a bunch of just smaller fish that are going to chew your crabs up much quicker than you'd like. So one thing you can do to help that is start off with half-cut crabs. And a lot of times when you cut them in half, they'll come through and those little fish, and they'll pick that apart. And hopefully, eventually, that'll draw in some bigger fish. And what I like to do is once I get a bite going in a certain area, I'll switch to medium-sized whole green crabs. And sometimes, not every time, there's no magic formula to it, but sometimes switching over to a whole green crab, once you've established a bite, can help get you onto some of those bigger ones. You can also just use large half crabs too. Sometimes that will help. There have been some positive reports of albies recently. We've had some of them come back through. Personally, I caught one this past weekend, which is the first one I got in local waters in quite a while. I heard from some buddies that there are some ones coming back through our local waters. Maybe those fish in the Western Sound are moving back over towards the Central and Eastern Sound. Who knows, but we love to see some albies out there while we're out togging. So if you do go out togging, make sure you bring your tog rod or your albie rod as well. Never want to miss a chance at hooking up on one of those guys while they're here for such a short period of time. All day long, there have been some good striper blitzes going on. Most of the time underneath peanut bunker. A lot of times there are birds working. You'll hear them screeching, going crazy. I've seen some small bluefish mixed in there as well. So there's plenty to get after out there. It's getting to be the end of October. We do have limited time left on the water, so bring whatever gear you want to and you need to catch all those fish that are still available. Soak up these beautiful fall days that we have while they're still here, and enjoy that fall fishing that we've got going on out there.
And to wrap things up on the saltwater side of things, we're going to toss it over now to Max Finch from Fisherman's World and hear what's going down in the Western Sound.
The fishing has been fantastic this past week. We've seen some really big bluefish, upwards of 15 to 20 pounds, actually running our beaches. They're all harassing these peanut bunker that are starting to slowly flood out of our rivers, our estuaries, and the striped bass are really starting to school up now to push, south and then in our local rivers. Albie fishing is hit or miss. There's still some around. I've seen some reports and some catches. The tog fishing remains good in the deep water and in the shallow water. Thanks and good luck.
And last but not least in Connecticut, we're going to throw it over now to Rowan Lytle, which I've been saying Little for the last 2 weeks. Just found out it's actually Lytle, so sorry, Rowan. And Captain Noah Johnson, they're going to give us a little rundown on some of the lesser utilized fisheries that we have here in Connecticut.
Well, the fall run's absolutely raging with incredible striper blitzes throughout Rhode Island and Connecticut. There's some other stuff starting to happen as well. Now, this is the time of year when the Hickory Shad first start to show up.
And not only are they showing up in their classic spots, they always show up in the fall, like estuaries and river mouths and things of that sort. But there's some lesser known bites that happen upriver in places like the Connecticut River, all the way as far upriver as Weathersfield. If you don't know how to catch shad, as far as hickories go, it's very simple. Something like a 1/8 ounce or 1/16 ounce shad dart or crappie jig or soft plastic crappie jig, like anything of that nature. They're not too hard to catch. Just rip it near the surface and occasionally pause it to let it sink a little bit, and you should be able to tie into them pretty easily.
And that's what I have for you guys this week in the reports. Hopefully you're going to find them useful. Hopefully next week we'll return to the longer format, but you know, we're packing this thing with as much information as we can, and you know, hopefully it's working out for you guys. If you're not a subscriber, head on over to the website, thefisherman.com. Check out what we got there. It's the best $30 you can spend in fishing. I swear to God, that's got to be what it is. And so check that out. And if you're still not convinced, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube, and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.
And here is the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge update for October 20th. Thomas Lenny of the Bronx entered a 15.53-pound bluefish for the current 4th place position. We also saw 3 nice blackfish entered this past week. The largest and the new #1 position for Tog was Richard Prombrandt of Attleboro, Massachusetts at 13.08 pounds. Robert Chaputin of Seacliff, New York weighed in this 10.10-pound Tog, and Ahmed Solomon of Brooklyn weighed in a 8.62-pound Tog. The standings remain the same, however. First place is Rob Carazano, second place Dean Paella, third place is Sam Dibner, and fourth place is Garrett Weir. The Dreamboat Fishing Challenge is the Fisherman subscriber-only multi-species fishing competition with a chance to win a new Steigercraft 23 Miami powered by Yamaha, along with many other great prizes. Visit thefisherman.com to subscribe and get all the details so you can be part of the action.
Hey everybody, just going to give you a quick rundown on what's going on at the Coastal Kayak Clash this week. We had 1 fish hit the board. That was a 26.5-inch blackfish entered by Scott Schneider, which is good enough for second place in the category. But nothing has changed at the top of the leaderboard. Tom Hode is holding down third place with 6 points. Bob Wagner's in second place with 7 points. And Justin Oster is still leading the whole thing with 11 points.